Hi and good evening everyone, and welcome to Journey Latin America's virtual travel club. This evening we'll be heading to the wonderfully verdant Costa Rica in Central America, a land brimming with beautiful wildlife, national parks, and a great place to spend a couple of weeks away. I'm delighted to welcome our head of sales, Ben Line, who will be taking us on a wonderful tour of Costa Rica. And also it gives me great pleasure to also welcome Paul Winrow Griffin, a travel expert and a very knowledgeable consultant at Journey Latin America. He'll be on hand to answer any questions that you have at the end of the evening. Please do use the Q&A for asking any questions, and we'll try to get back to you on those time permitting at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Ben.
Hi there. So first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to come and listen about Costa Rica. So I've got quite a lot to get through today, so I hope I don't rush too much. But first of all, just a little bit about me. So my sort of love affair with Latin America started when I was 18, backpacking from Colombia to Mexico when I passed through Costa Rica for the first time. After that, I went to university and graduated in Spanish and Latin American studies, which is a fairly common kind of route for lots of our travel experts. So usually graduated in languages or Latin American history or geography, something sort of related. So I joined in 2002 and have traveled a lot more, of course, Latin America since I've been there. So lots of favorite destinations, very difficult to pick them. But I've been lucky enough to travel pretty much everywhere. You can see just a handful of countries that I've yet to go to. So as regards Costa Rica, top tip, I think, is to invest in some decent binoculars. Really important. Even if you're not an avid bird watcher, they come in really handy wherever you go and really improve your experience. My other tip is to try and spend 2.5 weeks if you can. So if you can, I mean, I wouldn't go there for less than 10 days. We do organize 10-day trips for people sometimes, and that's fine. But if you can stretch it to 2.5 weeks, you'll be able to really see lots of the country and have some decent sort of R&R time as well. So a bit about Journey Latin America. So we're 41 years old now. And are generally widely acknowledged as the Latin American experts within the industry. We offer a good range of tailor-made and group tour holidays just to Latin America and Antarctica. And our efforts have been rewarded most recently with the 2020 winner of Best Tour Operator to Central and South America, so for the 2nd year running, which is great. And we are also platinum trusted service with FIFO, which recognizes the really good personal service that our travel experts give our clients. That's FIFO, of course, is rated by people who inquire with us or book with us. And finally, we are a friendly bunch. You can hopefully tell that from the photos here of the sales team. Everyone has lived, traveled, or studied extensively in Latin America. So everyone that joins us with a passion for the continent and already with a lot of knowledge, which then gets built up as they stay with us. So I mentioned we do tailor-made holidays. So we offer. We have a brochure with sample tours and a website with sample tours, but really we will put together whatever you want and whatever we recommend for your particular interests. So we have a range of accommodation options from what you'd term sort of classic 3-star to the very top end, and on the whole tend to focus on cultural holidays, wildlife holidays, self-drive holidays, off the beaten track, and some expedition cruises. A little less relevant for Costa Rica expedition cruises. There are some, and we can do some, but on the whole, it's somewhere that's best seen, on land. And we cater to families, honeymoons, couples, singles, and that's for both our group tours and our tailor-made holidays. our website, as I mentioned, has got a great deal on it. I think 19 tours include Costa Rica in our private journeys, and our small group tours. We have one which is exclusively Costa Rica, which is called the Tanager, which is a 2-week tour. And we have another one called the Alcyon that takes in the whole of Central America and spends some time in Costa Rica highlights on the way up through Central America. So what's really unique about our small group tours is that, well, they're small for a start, so minimum size is 4 and the maximum is 16 to 20. And in Costa Rica it's 20, but we often run them with fewer. As you can see, the average there is about 8 to 12. They're fully escorted by Journey Latin America tour leader throughout. The one exception to that is Costa Rica, actually, where we use a local guide who we know very well. And the main reason for that is because the specialist wildlife knowledge is such that, well, you need a specialist, trained guide with, wildlife knowledge and the ability to spot things in rainforest that most people, you and I, wouldn't spot without a guide. Of course, they also offer on the group tours the willing share option. So, so a great option if you're traveling, solo, and you can share a room and avoid a single supplement. Our tours as well, just worth mentioning, they can be flexible. So, arrive a few days late, leave a few days early, and then even during the tour, we tend to have optional excursions that you can choose from a couple of different options. So that's just a bit about Journey Latin America, but let's have a quick look at Costa Rica, a visual representation of Costa Rica that'll give you a really good flavour of what we have to offer. Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video, which really sums Costa Rica up very well. You will have seen a great deal of wildlife, a lot of rainforest, and a lot of beautiful beaches. We'll come on to the specific destinations shortly. Just before that, I wanted to give a bit of a flavour with a couple of fast facts on Costa Rica. So it's well known that it doesn't have any armed forces. It's a very peaceful nation, which given the 1980s and Latin America revolutions were sort of, spreading across the continent, Costa Rica has always been a really sort of peaceful and safe place. They concentrated instead on having lots of teachers, so and on education. So there's a very high literacy rate, and what that's translated into really is a well-educated population with excellent guides and really high levels of English language skills. They've always protected their country, so over a quarter of the country is protected as a national park or private reserves and wildlife sanctuaries and so on. That's the largest percentage of protected territory within in the whole world, which is why it's such a harbour for, or such a great home for wildlife. Very small country and small within Central America, but harbours 75% of Central American biodiversity as a result of of those environmental policies and protective policies. So a vast number of birds, 10% of the world's species in a tiny little country in Central America, and 10% of world butterfly species as well, and coast on both the Caribbean on the Pacific side. So endless reams of stunning unspoiled beaches. So all of those things really mean that it's one of these countries that genuinely does have something for everyone. There's wildlife pretty much in every destination you go to. Even if the destination's highlight attraction is not the wildlife, you will still see, wildlife, monkeys and sloths and so on. It's a number of different ecosystems and habitats, but primarily rainforest, cloud forest, mangroves. Obviously, the range of mountains dotted with volcanoes, and also a bit of paramo, sort of high altitude. But most of the country is low altitude and on the whole tropical. So it's a great place for soft adventure. You can also do some pretty intense higher adrenaline adventure as well if that's what you're interested in. And really well known for bird watching. Of course, 850 different species spotted in the country. So it's a birder's paradise, and definitely one of the premier destinations in the world, let alone Latin America for that. Is increasingly becoming known for wellness, and that's partly because of the hot springs that are dotted around the country, but also as a result of good quality boutique hotels where the emphasis has been on yoga and sort of revitalization, if you like. And there's a great choice of accommodation as well, from luxurious resorts to family-friendly resorts. And from the very high end to the more affordable end as well, if you like, the sort of mid-range. And so that range of accommodation means that it's great for families, and it is a very popular family holiday destination, not only because it's peaceful and safe, as I mentioned earlier, but because the kind of things that you do in Costa Rica, they're all outdoors, they're all the kind of things that kids love. I've yet to take my kids there. My kids are 4 and 2, but it will definitely be the first destination I take them to, in the coming years, because I just know they'd love it. There's wildlife at every turn. It's easy to get to as well, direct flights. There are no big journeys throughout the country. When you're going from one destination to another by road, they're generally, relatively short distances in Latin American terms. So rarely more than 4 hours, I would say, and much more often, 2-hour road transfers is the typical. And the other great thing for families actually is that it's a small country, and so it is possible to base yourself in, a couple of places and do quite a lot of far-reaching excursions. So staying in one place and going to national parks, northeast, southwest of where you're staying, and so that means that you're not constantly having to pack and unpack. So for families that works well. Equally, it's got a good road network, and is a small country, very friendly people, easy to get around, and so self-drive is something we find is very popular as well, across the board really, but particularly with families as well. Then I touched on this earlier with the literacy rates. The guides really are amazing. I've been fortunate enough to go to lots of different, throughout Latin America and Asia and India, and Costa Rica's guides really stand out. They absolutely know their stuff, and incredible at spotting, incredible at sort of bringing what you're witnessing alive as well. So it's not simply just pointing to where you might see something, but they're full of knowledge and enthusiasm, and again, I think that's another reason why everyone loves it, but particularly why children like it as well. So the guides are a real highlight of the country. So I mentioned this already. It's only 11 hours away by direct British Airways flight. So that's great. They fly 3 times a week. A couple of different ways that you can get there as well, depending on what your plans are. If you're wanting to combine a visit to Costa Rica with anywhere else, be it Madrid in Spain, Miami or another city in the US, or probably more popular with our clients tends to be a combination with another Latin American country. So if BA don't fly, but Iberia do, you might do British Airways in one direction and Iberia on the way back if you're planning to do a multi-country visit. So getting around, I mean, that top right-hand photo is me on a trip. Well, you can probably tell by the color of my hair, it's brown there rather than gray, but probably about 10 years ago. But the internal flights are really exciting. It's a bit like taking a taxi, to be honest. There's none of the hassle of checking in for flights as we know it. All of the flights through the country are low level, so the scenery is absolutely amazing, a bit like the picture on the bottom left. If that one's actually of the Pacific coast, but so the flights themselves are really enjoyable, and there's a good network of regional airports. So that's partly why you're rarely doing very long drives, because any of the longer distances, you'd typically fly. Some people don't like to fly. Some people are a bit nervous of small planes, and so being a small country, you can still, we can still design itineraries for you that get around that and avoid flying. There's really nowhere I can think of in Costa Rica that's 100% reliant on flying in. And then if you're staying on the coast, particularly on the Pacific coast, there are some places that are quite difficult to get to by car, so you might have a road journey to a certain point and then board a boat down a river and out to sea, and then down following the coast, which makes for a really exciting arrival at some of the coastal lodges. So time is relatively limited on this webinar, so I'm going to concentrate on what I term the main highlights that show a variety of different ecosystems and activities. Really, these places, they all cover rainforest, which is in Tortuguero. Well, is a bit all over the country. You can tell from the colours where it's green on the whole is tropical rainforest, with the exception of the Ossa Peninsula, which is slightly drier forest. Cloud forest, of course, on the slopes of the volcanoes and the mountains. Wonderful Caribbean beaches down near Puerto Vallarta, and Pacific beaches, wild, stunning, untouched Pacific beaches pretty much throughout the Pacific coast. So those are the areas I'm going to talk about, but you can see from this slide that there's a lot more to Costa Rica than just the places I'm talking about, but we are limited on time. Out of these places, there's a couple of cloud forest areas, so around Savegre, and on the slopes of Chiripo. Chiripo itself is the highest mountain, the highest peak in Costa Rica, and so at 3,800 meters. It's a challenging trek, but there are also easier sort of hiking opportunities in the foothills around Chiripo as well. Then, depending on what you want to do for the jungle and beach parts, then there are also some areas on the coast. I'm sorry, my child has just walked in. There are also some areas on the coast that are particularly good for surfing. But yeah, as I said, I won't be going into these in detail, and will instead get on with the highlights that I was going to concentrate on. So San Jose, in the center of the mountains, is really a gateway more than anything. So most people will end up spending a night or two in San Jose, but it's not a city that you would necessarily overstay in. There's little of interest in the city itself, bar a few colonial sort of buildings in the center, but on the whole, it's a modern city, and without any unique kind of attractions, I would say. So you can stay in downtown if you're there just for a night and just fancy a night in a nice hotel with access to good restaurants. Probably more popular, I think, for our clients is to stay in the countryside area just on the outskirts of San Jose. So you would have a view like the one in the top picture, overlooking the city, but wake up somewhere less hectic than a city, and then when you're going on to your next destination, it also avoids having to pass through any traffic. I said 1 or 2 nights. Sometimes people do like to have 2 nights after a long haul flight, rather than changing hotels so quickly. So we do often still allow for 2 nights in San Jose. And primarily because there are a number of really good day trips that you can do from the capital city or from one of the the nice hotels in the countryside outskirts. So these pictures really represent the main full day excursions that you can do either from San Jose, or some of these you can also do from other destinations. But full day river rafting, there are 3 different rivers that you can access from San Jose, depending on the kind of rafting you might be looking for. That might be some real high adrenaline white water, or just a gentle sort of float on a scenic river. Poas Volcano, which is the the volcano at the bottom of this screen, which is really not far from us, about 40 minutes from San Jose, and has an amazing lookout over this this acidic crater lake. Great views, and you can see the fumaroles coming out of the crater, and that combines really well with visiting a coffee plantation on the slopes of the volcano, where you can learn about the coffee making process and taste different coffees. Of course, Costa Rica is really well known for its soft adventure and canopy tours. So there are, of course, all sorts of options from San Jose. The one that we probably recommend the most is the one of which has a picture here. So it's a gondola type ride in Broward, Carrillo National Park. If you're doing that the day after you've arrived off a long haul flight from the UK, you really feel that you're in Costa Rica immediately. It's fantastic. And the picture of the cute little sloth is because there is a sloth sanctuary that you can go and have breakfast with and learn all about the sloth sanctuary rescue project. So kids, well, everyone loves it, but kids absolutely love that, having breakfast and learning all about the sloths and seeing the juveniles being fed. So that was San Jose. So Tortuguero is one of the really the real sort of rainforest highlights of Central America, I would say. So the main attractions of the rainforest, which you can explore in the canals and also trails from the hotels. It's really primary protected forest. A stay of 2 to 3 nights is typically what we would recommend here, depending on what else you're doing. But the journey to get there is really exciting. It's overland from San Jose and a combination of road and boat travel. As soon as you board the boat, you're in these canals heading through the rainforest and spotting wildlife, monkeys and sloths, and tropical birds straight away. So it's really exciting. And then the speedboat will take you to your lodge, which is either going to be south of the small village or over on the other bank, amongst the rainforest. So as a place itself, you can see it's just a small town. Tortuguero used to be a fishing village. Now, on the whole, it survives off ecotourism, and a handful of different lodges that allow you to explore the treasures of the rainforest. And it's incredibly easy to spot wildlife here, particularly with the guides. So actually throughout this presentation, quite a few of the photos are my own. I'm not a sort of highly skilled photographer, but I think it just represents that it really is easy to spot. So just worth pointing out that for photography, Costa Rica is fantastic from that point of view. So there are trails outside of hotels like this, on the whole pretty well marked, and they're great for spotting poison dart frogs and birds. There's a picture of a snake there, of course. I know that some people are not particularly keen on snakes. They scare me a bit, but I have to say I absolutely love seeing them in Latin America. And being fortunate to see quite a few in different countries, and it's fascinating. And I've never had a scary experience in the rainforest with snakes. You're always with professional guides. As you can see, the trails are well cleared, and on the whole, you tend to spot them thanks to the guides. A bit like this, curled up on a branch or in a tree. But yeah, so for me, that's really part of the attractions. The insects, well, not the insects, sorry, the smaller reptiles and smaller sort of creepy crawlies as well. But for the bigger mammals and the bigger species, then Tortuguero is great for monkeys. Good chances, very good chance of seeing all three howler monkeys, spider monkeys, and these white-faced capuchin monkeys. And it's also a really peaceful place to explore. So you can see that there's a picture of some people in a kayak, and that's an absolutely amazing experience. Just no motor, no engine, just listening to the jungle sounds, and seeing what you come across. Sloth, of course, there's a picture of a sloth there. Tortuguero is a very good place to spot sloths. There are a number of places throughout the country where you can see them, but Tortuguero is one of the best. The name Tortuguero really comes from turtles, as you'd imagine. So lots of people will choose to go to Tortuguero during the nesting and hatching season, which is from July, well, actually June through to October, although July and August are really considered the best months for it. Higher, very high chances of seeing both the nesting and the hatchlings. So in fact, if you really want to see both those activities, the females coming and nesting, and then the hatchlings, August really is the prime month for that, August in particular. And yeah, it's an amazing experience, and yeah, a beautiful thing to do. Just worth pointing out, you're on the Caribbean coast here, but the beaches are not for swimming, not on this part of the Caribbean. The seas are rough, and they're rather shark infested in that part, so you wouldn't jump in. I'm not going to dwell on the accommodation. These pictures are just to give you an idea. So this is probably our favoured lodge. So you can see very comfortable swimming pools, or swimming pool rather, lovely setting, or at a sort of less expensive price point. You can see that you're still getting a comfortable room, nice gardens, and a swimming pool again. And that reminds me again why this is such a good family destination on the whole Costa Rica, because there are pools at pretty much every hotel, which kids love. I love to as an adult. So that was Tortuguero. I mentioned that Tortuguero is not really a beach destination, or in fact is not a beach destination. However, the southern part of the Caribbean, so around Puerto Viejo and Cahuita National Park, is much more what you would imagine of Caribbean. So stunning beaches, and that sort of Caribbean flavor, both in terms of the local people, and also in terms of the kind of activities on offer. And yeah, it's a really great place to unwind, either at the beginning of a holiday or at the end of a holiday. Combines easily with Tortuguero, so you can continue from Tortuguero down to Puerto Viejo, or equally you can get there from San Jose. But you can see from these pictures the beaches are really stunning, unspoilt on the whole. So well, unspoilt full stop, because Costa Rica doesn't permit building right on the beaches, or at least they haven't done since I think the 1960s. And yeah, it's a great base for the water sports, snorkeling, and diving. Although it's the Caribbean, it's not dead still like like some of the keys. There are waves or beaches with waves, so it's also good for snorkeling. And of course, being in Costa Rica, there's also plenty of wildlife to be seen as well. So either in the rainforest itself that descends right to the beaches, or there are also a number of mangrove canals that you can also go and explore by kayak. Another picture of a sloth, because probably the country's most famous sloth sanctuary that was visited by David Attenborough is based in this area, and a very popular choice to go and see the the cute little baby sloths. I mentioned that a very Caribbean flavour, so there is, it's not a big nightlife hub, but it's got that flavour, sort of reggae bars and nice sort of beach shacks and the fresh seafood restaurants. So very relaxed, great place to go. Hotels. Again, I'm just going to show 2 hotels. So this is, the sort of top end of the options. So a lovely plantation, Victorian plantation house that's been converted, beautifully done. Or if you're looking for something a bit more rustic, then Carry Blue is a great option as well. So very comfortable, super family friendly, and yeah, just less expensive as well. Both of these have great locations in terms of access to the beach. So I'm then going to move on to Arenal. So Arenal is famous for the volcano. It's the most active volcano in Costa Rica, although it's been dormant since about 2010. However, it's still very much an area to include on an itinerary, I would say, primarily because, well, the volcano itself is incredibly scenic, perfect sort of cone volcano, but the landscapes around are stunning at every which way you look. Tropical foliage with this incredible volcano sort of looming over. So it's great for hiking or for photography, but of course also for wildlife and soft adventure. So as far as soft adventure goes, it really is a bit of a sort of soft adventure playground. So there's the Canopy Tour. There's a canopy. They call it the hanging bridges, which is the photo on the left, which is great for getting up high into the canopy, rainforest canopy. There's also zip lining, rappelling. The picture in the top right is actually not in Arenal, but it's an example of how you can use Arenal as a base to visit other national parks. So that national park is up in the north, and the river and waterfall itself is called Rio Celeste, and is a stunning turquoise river that has this waterfall that you can visit. So hot springs as well, because it's volcanic. We love to do the hot springs on the whole in the evening, actually, where you go and after a good day's activities, go and visit the hot springs and have a good soak. And then the one that we recommend has got really nice restaurant for good food afterwards, and just completes a great day doing that. I talked a bit about the hanging bridges, but there's also the Sky Trek and Sky Tram that are really well known internationally outside of Costa Rica. So for those who want to go zip lining, amazing zip lines, very safe, very well operated. I'm scared of heights, but I've done it and absolutely loved it. It was exhilarating. And then also the Sky Tram for those who might want a slightly less sort of thrilling experience in terms of speed. So the idea of the Sky Tram is it takes you through the canopy, but in a slightly less adrenaline-filled way. Hotels in this area, there are lots of different hotels, and lots of them combine spas because of the natural springs that I mentioned. So you can see that, such as this one, the Nyara Springs, is incredible property, absolutely incredible service and facilities. They have a couple of different ones. So this one is adults only, but they also have a sister property on the same land that, that's family friendly. You can see more along the mid-range levels, still really nicely set with views of the volcano, swimming pools, lots of green foliage, hummingbirds in the gardens, and lovely options there. So on the whole, I would say Monteverde, Arenal, most people would stay 2 or 3 nights, and that's the same of Monteverde, which is famous for the cloud forest reserve at Monteverde. So being cloud forest, it's a great place for bird watching, and also, of course, the other attractions that you get in the cloud forest. So the frogs, for which Costa Rica is famous for, coloured poison dart frogs. But the town of Monteverde itself is a good base for visiting the cloud forest, but it's also got other things of interest. It's a friendly little community, but it's got a butterfly farm that's really interesting to go and visit, learn about all the different species of butterfly. The frog house, which is great if you're not going to travel to the rainforest, because you'll be able to see lots of the different coloured frogs that are found in the rainforest as well as in the cloud forest. But the main reason people will come here on the whole is to explore the rainforest and the cloud forest, and in particular to try and spot sloths and this bird in the bottom right, which is the resplendent quetzal. So absolutely beautiful bird, and there are really high chances of seeing it in Monteverde. You're much more likely to see it than not, and yeah, it's an amazing thing to see. But of course, apart from just the quetzal, you will see the other wildlife as mentioned here, was shown here on the slides, on the pictures. So I kind of touched on some of the other activities in Monteverde as well. It's a very fertile area, so there are coffee plantations and cacao plantations, so you can learn about coffee and chocolate making process, horse riding, and yeah, it's a great area to fill 2 or 3 days with before moving on, I would say. It's also quite nice because the elevation is probably about 1,500 meters high. So it's quite nice in Costa Rica, a tropical country where it is generally hot and pretty humid wherever you go. It's quite nice to go to the cloud forest just to have a little break from the heat. So of course, the temperatures drop with the altitude. Monteverde Lodge is our favoured accommodation, really nice and recently done up, and it's set in its own private reserve. So chances are you'll see, just staying in the rooms, you'll see monkeys, and I remember seeing a sloth in the car park here, and certainly you'll see lots of tropical birds in the gardens. And the same is true of this option, the Hotel Belmar. So again, it's its own little private reserve, and right backing onto the Monteverde cloud forest, a really good location for that. Again, these are really just to give you a flavour for the range of accommodation. So the next area I'm going to talk about is the Ossa Peninsula, and that, as you can see on the map, is the sort of fairly large peninsula that sticks out there. This is primarily rainforest, and one of the premier national parks in the country. I mean, it's difficult to weigh one national park up against the other because, to be honest, they're all incredible. But Corcovado stands out there, I would say, for for its size and for the variety of species that you'll see in Corcovado. Often people do go to both Tortuguero and Ossa Peninsula because there is a difference in the experience and then the setting as well. So Tortuguero, we've already seen, it's all about the canals and the trails, whereas Ossa Peninsula is, it's got lots of coast and really stunning beaches. So I refer to them quite often as wild beaches. So that's not to say wild as in, as in they can't be enjoyed. That really just means wild as in pretty untouched. Yeah, that's part of the experience for Ossa, for me. So most people will go there for the wildlife, but the the beautiful beaches certainly warrant a mention, and I really felt when I went here that it could be a beach destination in itself. We'll come on to that in a little bit. So the main reason to go is for the rainforest and for the activities on offer. So Corcovado National Park, I mean, I mentioned some of these photos were mine, not the frog one, but the little snake and the monkey ones are. So you really get the feeling that, well, I'm trying to put across the reality that you'll see a great deal. I was only there last time for 2 days and saw a huge amount in the time that I was there. And it's not just the big stuff that's interesting. As I previously mentioned, you know, amazing creatures that inhabit the rainforest. I loved this, I don't even know what it was called, but this sort of small lizard in the bottom right that incredibly camouflaged with the tree. And the guides are just amazing at spotting these things. I would never have spotted that on my own. The experience in the rainforest, and most rainforest places will do it, an experience that I'd highly recommend are the Nocturnal Walks. So you go with a guide with headlamps on. You don't tend to go very far from the lodges because there's no need at night. You know, a lot of the activity is just easier to spot with the head torch, and really is fascinating. People tend to be a bit nervous about it, the idea of going off into the rainforest at night, but many times I've seen people that are nervous and they've kind of forced themselves to do it and have come back really buzzing from the experience. So definitely something I'd recommend. The top right picture was just a bird sleeping that I found amazing. Our group was just standing around it. It didn't fly away as you'd expect a small bird to with with humans standing so close. So Ossa, I mentioned, is primarily, most people know it for the rainforest, but because it's got all that coast, it's also really great for a number of different things. So lots of surfing beaches and also places to learn to surf. So it's not just big waves, but family friendly, smaller beaches with surf schools. You can do boat trips to Canio Island, which is probably one of the best places in Costa Rica to go snorkeling. So that's out in the Pacific. Probably takes about an hour to reach by speedboat, and good chance of snorkeling with turtles and large shoals of fish. And of course, whale watching is also something that's well known on this coast. Hopefully these pictures give you a realistic idea of what the beaches are like. So really beautiful. Some are less good for swimming and others are great for swimming. So you'll always get good advice from from the hotels when you're there as to which are the best swimming beaches, but also from us, our travel experts, depending on what your interests are. You can also walk for miles up and down these beaches. Just one leads to another. So accommodation, you can see that there are lots of, there are a number of very luxurious options with beautiful settings overlooking the ocean. So that last one that I just showed is sort of, you can see from the picture at the top in the middle is really nestled into the forest and is quite high up on a bluff, La Rios. But for those that might be keener to have a bit of rainforest, but then, really have some beach time, then Copa de Arbol is really amazing. It's got this stunning setting on this small beach, small but beautiful beach. No one else can really get there to the beach, so it's really only guests. And yeah, is really highly recommended. So I was talking about Ossa there. I know I'm rushing because we don't have too long, but I talked about Ossa, which is of course on the Pacific. I'm going to cover a few of the other Pacific areas as well. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Manuel Antonio. So Manuel Antonio, going back to the map, is in the middle of there. It's about 4 hours from San Jose overland. Having said that, there is actually a new road that I think has cut that journey down quite significantly, I believe. So I think it may even be as little as 3 hours. But yeah, really beautiful beaches, and it's famous. It's probably the best known national park in Costa Rica, Manuel Antonio, and that's because it's picture postcard perfect beach and a really easily accessible national park where you can see 4 varieties of monkeys. So you can see the squirrel monkeys, the howlers, spider monkeys, and the white-faced capuchins, and lots of other important wildlife, really easily accessible. But it tends to be most popular at the moment, I would say, either with honeymoon couples, because there are a couple of hotels that are secluded here and really lovely sort of hotels, or with families, because there's a bit of there's a nice vibe to Manuel Antonio. It's probably one of the busier places that we tend to send people to in Costa Rica, but that really suits lots of people as well. So when I say busy, I'm not talking overcrowded, but I mean a choice of restaurants and a bit of bar sort of nightlife. And yeah, as you can see from the pictures, it's not just about the wildlife. You can do surf lessons, and they can organize all sorts of things inland, like rafting and zip lining and so on. Just a little south from there, Uvita is smaller and quieter than Manuel Antonio. It's about an hour south. The main reason to go to Uvita is it's one of the places to see the humpbacks, and there's actually only 2 months in the whole year that you won't spot humpback whales. That's May and November. And that's because they get the migration coming from California, so from the north, as well as from Antarctica. So really great place for humpback whale watching. The other attraction, oddly enough, is the Punta Uvita, which is the picture there that you can see of the sandbank, which coincidentally is like a whale's tail, but really beautiful. And you can get up to some high sort of bluffs where you get really nice scenery or really nice views of it. And then because it's rainforest coming down to the coast, lots of options for exploring rivers and waterfalls. And so on. So I mentioned earlier the hotel that honeymooners particularly like in Manuel Antonio. So this is it, Arenas del Mar, primarily because it's the only one sort of in the national park. So it really is it's got absolute prime location, views over to the national park, and it's got this access to the beach and really good service. I mentioned honeymooners, but it's absolutely family friendly too, so it's not exclusively honeymooners, it's just popular with them. So now moving a little further north, so to the Nicoya Peninsula. If I go back to this map, you can see that's the northern part of the country, and so this part here is actually drier than much of the rest of the country. So you can see that in the landscapes, even in these photos. I mean, yes, it's green and verdant, but you can see that that it's a different kind of foliage, different kind of ecosystem or habitat. And Nicoya is really good in the sense that if people are traveling at the time where they may see more rains, well, they'll certainly see less in this part because it is drier. But the other great thing about it is a choice of lots of small boutique hotels, from luxurious to family friendly, to explore expanses of beach, and probably the most popular reason from wildlife point of view to come to this area is to visit Osteonal Beach, where literally hundreds of thousands. I mean, I think that the record was something like 100,000 arriving in one night to the beach to the females come ashore to nest. And so that period is from July to December, and it's a phenomenal thing. I haven't actually seen it, but colleagues that have really been wowed. So that's a big highlight for lots of people, and kids absolutely love seeing seeing turtles. I mean, it's magical, absolutely magical. I've not seen them here, but I've seen them elsewhere, of course. The southernmost part of the Nicoya Peninsula is becoming well known for the wellness and yoga that I mentioned. So if that's of interest, then some of the best places to stay for those things are in the southern tip of the Nicoya. and yeah, just some pictures to give you a bit of a feeling to the fact that it's not just beach. You can go inland to Tenorio National Park and sorry, not Tenorio National Park, to Rio Tarcoles, where you can spot crocodiles amongst other wildlife. In fact, not far from here, the national park has the highest population of scarlet macaws, so beautiful watching those fly at night. So an idea of the accommodation again, beautiful high-end option, just overlooking the beach, but there are a huge variety of places. The last thing I wanted to talk about just was whitewater rafting. So Costa Rica has got 3 different rivers and lots of different put-in points. So it's a thrilling experience, even for those that haven't done it. And I would say even for those that might think they would never do it. So we have options to suit all ages from 6 years onwards. And rapids that you can run vary from 2 to 4. So 4 is, is pretty high adrenaline. You're going to get soaked. You may sort of be tossed out of the boat, which is all part of the fun and so on. But 2 is really just a gentle float in stunning scenery. And I've put some pictures in here of a lodge, because this lodge, Pacuari, if you're interested in rafting, this is incredible. You arrive there rafting, stay a couple of nights, and then raft out. But it's unique, absolutely unique within Latin America. So, and really high-end accommodation as well. The top right picture is one of the tree houses. They've got all sorts of different options, but it's magical. It's one of those places that people come back from and just really, really say was one of the absolute highlights. So I think I need to be wrapping up fairly quickly for any questions, but of course, important question: when is the best time to visit Costa Rica? So I've mentioned here a dry season or a drier season and a green season. So in most years, the dry season is December to May. Although it's just important to say you're in the tropics and much of the country is rainforest, so you can experience rain at any time of the year. And I have traveled, been to Costa Rica and other parts of Central America throughout these months. I would say on the whole, if I had a choice, I'd probably try and avoid October and November. Other than that, all the things that I've talked about really, so the wildlife and the scenery and so on is still very much available, whether you're traveling in the dry season or the drier season or the green season. The difference probably is the green season is going to be hotter and more humid, whereas the dry season, of course, you're going to get a greater chance of clear skies, but the landscapes will be drier, so less lush. But on the whole, I really would view it as a place to go, to choose based on what your interests are as well. Because if you really want to see the turtle nesting over in Tortuguero, then that would involve going during the green season, particularly in August. And then ironically, the Caribbean coast, where Puerto Viejo and Cahuita, ironically, the best time to visit there when there's the least amount of rain, which is probably more important if you're just looking for a beach sort of R&R experience. The driest time there actually is the wettest time in the rest of the country. So there are lots of different microclimates at play in Costa Rica. So on the whole, I wouldn't get too bogged down into when to go exactly, unless you have a specific interest or a specific activity. Very quickly, Costa Rica is fabulous, is an amazing country, but the one thing it does lack is culture, sort of ancient culture. So they're really friendly people, and lots of music, generally from other countries in Latin America, but it does lack some of the things that the neighboring countries offer. So if you're a culture vulture and want to get a bit of culture in, then it's really easy to combine Nicaragua with a visit to Costa Rica, either land border crossings or by flight. And Nicaragua is of course full of history, revolutionary history, and amazing colonial towns. Panama is a very common combination, partly for the city, Panama City itself. The historical center is is absolutely, stunning. But also the canal, which until I went there, I never had much of an interest in the canal, but it's phenomenal. It's an incredible project to see, and harbors a huge amount of wildlife, and some species that you wouldn't see in Costa Rica that are unique to this area. And then, of course, Mexico's great Aztec and Mayan pyramids, and Guatemala, lots of Mayan pyramids. So, and colourful indigenous markets. So, depending what you might want, other than just the offerings of Costa Rica, or if you're looking to go for a holiday that's longer than 2.5 weeks, then certainly you can combine with another country. Just lastly, how long should you go for? I think I mentioned that earlier, actually. You can go for as little as 10 days. I would say our average is probably a touch over 2 weeks. And I would recommend, if you can, 2.5 weeks, particularly if you're looking to combine with a short hop across to one of the neighboring countries. So just quickly, a bit about Journey Latin America traveling with us. So more than ever, full financial protection is really important. So you certainly have peace of mind with booking with us. We have all the necessary bonding with ABTA and ATOL. We currently have a very flexible booking policy. So in essence, we know that times are a bit uncertain at the moment. We ourselves are not exactly sure when different countries will become available for UK travellers. And so our flexible booking policy really is recognising that. So in essence, we don't ask for any full payments until 45 days before travel dates. And although we do require a deposit to book, that sort of holiday can be postponed free of charge. And of course, if we are forced to cancel the holiday, then without question, the deposit would be refundable. You have the travel expert, of which I used to be a travel consultant, if you like, but you have one of our travel experts available to you right until you fly. So it's not just about what you get from them. It's not just the friendly service and the help designing the holiday, but it's also all the support right up until you fly, recommendations and support. And of course, our local partners are selected on quality, and we're really happy with the ones we work with in Costa Rica, who we've worked. We've got a couple depending on what exactly you want to do, but we've worked with them for many, many years. And they, as much as us, place a lot of importance on environmental and social responsibility in their holidays. So that is part and parcel of booking with Journey Latin America. That's also at the forefront of our product team and the company as a whole. Then I'm going to move on to the Journey Latin America travel app, because there's a video that should hopefully tell you about this, but it's fantastic. It really makes travel easy.
Journey Latin America's travel app makes travel easy. It's simple to use, saves time, and provides you with all your important travel information and local contact numbers in one place, both on and offline. So now you can let the excitement build as you count down the days to your holiday and have a last-minute check on the weather to see what to pack. Scroll through your day-by-day itinerary to see what exciting places and activities are in store, and share your login with friends and family so they can keep track of your trip. Stay one step ahead at the airport with live flight info, schedule changes, and boarding notifications straight to your smartphone or tablet device. On arrival, browse the list of recommendations and begin exploring the restaurants, museums, cafes, bars, and places of interest that come personally recommended by Journey Latin America's clients. Don't worry about getting lost on the way there, as you'll have access to offline maps so you can navigate the streets just like a local. After seeing the sights, make trip notes and share all your memories with friends and family using our digital diary. The Journey Latin America travel app. Travel made easy.
Great. So that app really is so good. It's full of recommendations from us following our visits. So lots to get out of it. you can speak to us in a number of different ways. Just wanted to highlight that we are now taking Zoom video consultations, which is a really good way to liaise with one of the country experts. They can share their screen with you and give lots of ideas. But also, of course, face-to-face is often easier. But otherwise, if that doesn't suit, then over the phone, that's probably how we do most of our holiday planning, or by email as well. Then finally, I'll be talking about Ecuador and Galapagos in 2 weeks' time. So if that is somewhere that you'd be interested, please join us.
That was brilliant, Ben. Thank you ever so much. I hope everyone enjoyed that whistle-stop tour of Costa Rica. It was incredible to learn about all these incredible destinations, and certainly I, for one, was taken back to a wonderful visit there a few years ago. Before we move on to the Q&A, Ben, I wanted to ask you, is there a place in Costa Rica or a particular national park that you would recommend for the best wildlife viewing experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, there's incredible wildlife everywhere, but I think I would probably go with Ossa Peninsula, Corcovado National Park. Really, because it's also a place that you can stay for, quite happily for 5 days and be doing something different each day. So I think, yeah, Corcovado National Park or Ossa Peninsula in that area is probably where I would choose.
Fantastic, that's great. And Paul, we were wondering, there's been a few questions about the food. You travelled there quite recently. Do you have any recommendations on what the food is like, or any suggestions?
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I mean, getting around Costa Rica is, eating your way around the country. It's an interesting experience. I mean, much like a lot of Central American countries, you're going to have, your fair share of rice and beans and fairly sort of hearty cuisine. And that's, it's not to take away from it, but it's, that's just really sort of a product of the history of the region, and yeah, it really goes down a treat. All the Costa Ricans are particularly proud of the gallo pinto, and everyone you meet will try and introduce it to you like it's the first time you've had it, even though you've probably had it for breakfast the day before. But it's really proud of it. And then alongside some of the heavier stuff, of course, you've got the fresh foods, the fresh fish, the salads, and some decent meat that comes out of Costa Rica as well. The casado is a typical lunch, which has got you've got your rice, your beans, your plantain, some meat, maybe fresh fruit and avocado. I mean, the fruit in Costa Rica is really to die for. You're eating pineapple straight off from the plantations in Sarapiqui is amazing. So, I think the fruit really stands out. But yeah, you'll come back remembering gallo pinto.
Amazing. So you won't go hungry then. In terms of festivals, I was trying to think of any festivals that you might stumble across in Costa Rica. Ben or Paul, can you think of any off the top of your heads?
Paul, I don't know about you, but I would probably struggle really with a particular festival that would warrant traveling there for it, that I'm aware of. I mean, I know that there's a big festival in well, not far from San Jose, in the main sort of agricultural breadbasket of the country, but it's very much a local affair, and I don't think it has a huge amount to offer. It's more about sort of local sort of agricultural workers meeting up and so on. It's not that's as far as I'm aware, and unless Paul you know otherwise.
I mean, it sounds a little bit harsh that we've perhaps skipped over the people side of Costa Rica so much, but I think a lot of it is because the cities are they're not particularly attractive places to stay, and really the most exciting parts of Costa Rica are often in rural parts and out in lodges and really making the most of the nature. So that's really first and foremost what you'll be doing out there, and as a kind of byproduct, you're not really in the towns and wandering around looking at the history and soaking up any festivals on the side. So it does seem like it's being glossed over, but actually I think if you switch the festivals for the nesting seasons and think of it like that, then that might be a good way to approach it.
or for the, like I'd mentioned, I think for the human element, combined with somewhere like Guatemala for Semana Santa or Day of the Dead, for that side of things.
That's great, Ben. Also, we've had one request from a person who wants to visit Cocos or Isla Coco, and they were asking for recommendations in the northwest of Costa Rica.
So Isla Cocos, I'll probably leave this to you, Paul, this Isla Cocos, but it's difficult to get to because it's highly protected. So Paul, you may have had more experience recently in following up any inquiries for Cocos.
Yeah, it's to be honest, it's not somewhere we get asked for very much, and getting there is not easy. I mean, I think, if you're looking at the northwest of Costa Rica, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, parts of the Guanacaste coastline, they are a bit more developed and devoted to some resorts and tourism, which is brilliant if you're looking for some R&R, some amazing places to stay. And then just inland, there's some great parks to visit. But I'd say that northern part of the Guanacaste coastline is dedicated more to sort of beach and relaxation and so on. And then as you head further down the coast, down towards Nicoya, as Ben was talking about, it gets a bit quieter, a bit less developed, smaller hotels, a bit more sort of wellness focused, and just more relaxed, which I really love personally. But then getting out to Cocos, admittedly it's a difficult place to get out to, and wouldn't necessarily have to combine it with the northwest of Costa Rica. I think you could really combine it with really anywhere.
Yeah. I remember, I mean, we don't know as an organisation a great deal about Cocos because it is difficult to get to, and it's on the whole, it's for people who want to go diving with large schools of hammerhead sharks and so on. But I know it's difficult to get to, and notably expensive if doing it as a private sort of trip. So when I had an inquiry that I remember many years ago, actually the person ended up opting for the Galapagos instead, where it was more accessible and more sort of cost effective.
Okay, that's very helpful advice, Ben. We've also had some questions about seeing wild cats in Costa Rica. I'm not sure that that's it's not very easy to spot. Do you have any knowledge on that?
It's funny, I was going to something I was going to mention, I forgot, but yeah, I mean, jaguar exists in Costa Rica, and so do ocelot, and puma, lynx, but you're pretty unlikely to see them, if I'm perfectly honest with you. They get caught on camera traps frequently, and there's a reasonable population of them up in Tortuguero, but they don't come anywhere near the areas that the national park that that are accessed for tourism. So jaguar, you might be incredibly lucky and see one in one of the other national parks like Ossa Peninsula, Corcovado, but it's unlikely. You shouldn't go there expecting to see cats.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And also a question on public transport. Is public transport widely available, or is that really mainly just left to the cities and large towns? So in order to access the national parks, it's would you need to organise something separate?
Yeah, I mean, public transport is not really reliable and won't get you to the places that I've been talking about. They'll get you between the cities and the main towns, but not to the national parks or to the lodges, etc. So yeah,
we do utilize a few sort of they're kind of a between it's kind of a tourist public transport service, but really good for keeping costs down on if you're doing some of the 4 or 5 hour journeys. They're sort of shuttle buses, so they'll 16 passengers, and they have fixed schedules, so you just catch it as it goes by at 12 o'clock that day and get to your destination efficiently, get dropped off at your hotel usually, and it usually costs sort of is much cheaper and more affordable than perhaps a private transfer. But that's as far as we go really on the public transport side of things.
Yeah, it's true. We organise that, but again, those are all pre-booked as part of a sort of itinerary, so it's not public transport in the sense of you can't just sort of book on it the same day, really.
Okay, great. And just last question before we wrap the event up. In terms of flights prices in 2021, do we think that they'll be significantly higher than the pre-pandemic days?
Paul?
From what I've been seeing, actually, I think, I think everyone is kind of going through the same thing, and the hotels and operators on the ground are really trying to be as flexible and understanding as possible. So really, actually, across Latin America, I've been seeing really good things about rates being extended from 2019, 2020 all the way to 2022, and people, I guess, just taking the hit on it and really just trying to encourage travel and tourism to sort of spark back up. So really, actually, from postponements that we've been making over the last year or so, with many trips, they've remained the same, and we've, on our side, also endeavoured to keep it the same. Whether that means, just sort of doing our best to keep the prices and any changes as low as possible, really.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you very much, Ben. We've had some great feedback from our viewers at home, so it's really, really wonderful to have all your lovely feedback, and I'm really delighted that you could join us all this evening. So as Ben has mentioned, we have the next Virtual Travel Club with Ben on the 23rd of March on Ecuador and Galapagos. So we look forward to welcoming you for another evening tour of the Andean, Ecuador and Galapagos. So thank you, everyone. Thanks ever so much for joining us this evening. Great, and we hope to see you soon.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you very much, everyone.